In this video, we're going to look at the wave editor and the loop editor on the editor page here in the edit section. Now, to begin with, we toggle between the wave editor and loop editor with this button over here. That's the wave editor and that's the loop editor. Let's start with this one. Now, I have a sample selected here from one of the kits, and it's containing a loop. So that's the entire sample. So we go to this wave editor mode here, and it's important to remember that all of these edits are destructive. So they're going to be actually changing the file on your hard drive. Now, the first most basic type of edit is to simply adjust the sample start and end markers to control which portion of the sample we want playing. So I'm dragging this in, and I'll select, let's say, a small portion. I'm dragging the S and now the E. So I can have it play, let's say, just that when I hit the note on my keyboard. Or this. So this is the full sample, but it's only playing within the start and end marker. Now, the other thing we can do is adjust the sample region or the edit range by selecting these outer markers. So it could be, let's say, the same as that, or it could be larger. But let's say I'm going to put it as the same as that. So now I'm working with just this edit range, and this button, by the way, will expand it to the full range of the sample. If I do it, it'll snap back like that. So let's do this again. I just dragged in the scroll and zoom zone by mistake, so let me zoom. And you got to be careful with your dragging if you're dragging horizontally and vertically. So there we go, and they're snapping because this little snap button is on. So now I have that, I can perform a variety of edits. Now, before we do that, just to point out, we have the sample picker here, and if you have multiple layers like we saw when we did this in a few other videos, and I'll get to this in the next video, pasting in additional layers here, you'll get the additional layer picker over there, the layer selector, but right now there's only this one layer, so we can change the sample like that, and we've seen that before. So now that we have this, we have a variety of tools. This is an undo button, very important, because as I say, the edits are destructive and you can undo. So we can crop. I can basically trim this whole sample and have it just be what's in the edit range there. I can cut it. I can copy it. Let's try that. I'm going to copy it, and then we can try pasting it into another sample. Let's try there. So let's try pasting that in. Let's go to the editor page, and now in the edit mode, the wave editor, paste. So I've just pasted that into that cell. So let's go back to our bass funk, and there's our selection. So we can copy there, paste. We can duplicate. I just hit duplicate button. Let's hear all that. Let's hear the whole sample if I drag this out. I can now play it with the range button. So you hear that I pasted in that extra iteration of that down at the bottom. Let's drag this back. So you see here that the edit range and the actual start and end markers are independent. They don't have to be in unison together. So we have more edit tools after that. We have normalize, which will raise the volume up. We have the silence command, which will silence. And again, I got to emphasize these are destructive. We can fade in or fade out of the samples based on the selection over here. We have a DC offset removal. And over here, we can reverse the sample. And this snaps the movement to zero crossings or to other markers. And these buttons are good for full and range and loop range. We can play different portions of what's selected. I'll play full. So it's playing now between the start and the end markers. Let me just move this in, and you'll hear it'll play between start and end. And if I do this, it plays just the edit range over there, and this will play. It loops the edit range until you click it again. So those are the three different playback buttons, which are useful when you're working with independent edit areas, edit selection areas, and independent start and end markers. You can addition them freely like that. Now let's look at the loop editor. I'm going to go to here, and let's switch samples for this. Let's clear the kit, and I'm going to go OK. And let's load a sample in here. And let's load in one of these loops. So let's listen to that. I'm going to use this button over here. Okay, so it's a couple of bars long, this loop. So some of the controls look the same. There's the loop editor button over there. And we have first the sample start and end marker. Now the idea here is we can have up to 4 loop regions within a sample. So I want the start and end marker to be the entire range of the file, but within there I want to create some loops to loop certain parts of it. So actually, let's shorten it for now. Let's make it shorter just so we don't have to listen to the whole thing. Let's try that. And within here, I'll create some loops. Let's listen to this. I'll make it 1 bar long and drag it to there. So within here, we can create loops. So let's use the add loop button, and it adds a loop to the length of the whole sample by default, but I'm going to trim the loop like that, and we want to loop, let's say, just a portion of it. So let's say just that. Now I have a loop created within the start and end marker range, and we can control the behavior of this loop here. So we have, again, the sample picker if there's multiple layers, and we're only working with one, so just pointing that out, and there will be the layer selector if there are multiple layers. So we have the mode menu to start with, and this affects how the loop is going to be played. We can do it until we release the key that we're triggering it with, or until the end of the volume envelope. Let's leave it at key release for now. And here for count, we dictate how many times we want the loop to play. That's the infinity sign, or we can set a finite amount of loops. So let's say I'll put it to 3. So let me hit the key on my keyboard, and we should hear this 1 bar area played over here with this looped 3 times. So that's the way that works. Now, it's not a very precise edit. We can, of course, zoom in, and we know how to do that by clicking and scrolling up, and I can make it a little more precise. It was a little late there. And let's scroll. And, of course, it's very important to be precise with these types of rhythmic repeats and edits. So let's do that. And now we can tune. I'm going to zoom a little bit by dragging down. We can tune the loop. We can have it be transposed on each iteration. So let's say it's going to go down 2.1 semitones each time now. Let's try that again. So you can get some nice effects like that. Let's do it a bit more dramatically. And we can set up an additional loop zone. So let's click the plus button, and there's a new loop, and let's drag that out. And again, you got to be careful where you drag here. I want to grab the end of the loop range. There it is. And let's just drag it in. Grab the other one by mistake. It's easy to click in the wrong place. Let me move it aside there, and let me just redo the loops here. And again, just zooming and scrolling by clicking up and down. Let's do that one there. Zoom a little bit and bring this in. Make it a bit smaller. And bring it in. And we'll loop, let's say, that portion. Let me zoom. And let's set it nice and precise. Let's go till there. And we'll see what that sounds like. So now we have 2 loops in there. So for the second loop, I'll do that one, let's say, 2 times, and I'll tune that one up. And we can also have a crossfade if we want a little bit of overlap on each of the loop iterations and the material before and after the loop points. Let's see what this sounds like. So you can create some nice rhythmic effects like that. And the behavior here is similar to what we saw in the wave editor. When we use the full button, it'll play between the start and end markers. Range will play what's inside the selected loop. Since that's one that's selected, and here this will play what's in that loop. And this one will loop the material within the loop region. And the number of times that it's set there. And that's how that works. So I'm going to wrap up this video here, and in the next video, we're going to look at the rest of the editor page, the mapping area down here.